Let's talk about narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is just the endless need for validation that narcissists have due to pervasive social anxiety and fear of abandonment. They have no trust whatsoever for people, and being in a chronic state of fight or flight, particularly socially, means that they have no empathy because normal emotions are subordinated as they prioritize their social existence. This is an involuntary thing. So the lack of empathy has nothing to do with any moral implication, although people lacking empathy can be highly immoral, simply unable to relate to the experience of other people. And so supply comes in the form of ongoingly not trusting reality, not trusting relationships, constantly being suspicious, constantly needing to figure out how they need to be to survive on a day-to-day basis. And that includes all relationships. And so in that regard, the ego of a narcissist is an ongoing approximation of necessity, both socially and intellectually even. Trying to become somebody that is in control, that can't be abandoned, somebody that's good enough. And so everybody has this pervasive need to try to be good enough. Everybody's hierarchical. If you have an ego, you're hierarchical. See, egos aren't just about being at the top, because in the case of the covert narcissist, they're at the bottom. To be a grandiose victim is to be at the lowest level of society all the time. Always needing the past, always needing a diagnosis, always having some way of avoiding responsibility and accountability. The narcissist is always going to shift blame. Darvo is a principal way in which they protect themselves, and they have what's called a narcissistic injury. The narcissistic injury is a fight or flight reaction that has no origin. You see, it just comes from having a fight or flight initiated in very early childhood before there was any semblance of reality forming in the mind of the child. A young infant child cannot distinguish their mother, their father, themselves. So sound and light are just that, sound and light. And so dad yelling at mom can create a formless reaction. And if you want to know how you create a narcissist, all you have to do is punish young children that do not really understand what's happening, or just scream and have conflict, or play loud music, or do practical jokes, spooking young children. And so if a mother does something to intentionally spook a young child, she's going to violate the relationship permanently. That if a young child that has separation anxiety as its only form of fear is supposed to, under all conditions, be safe in the company of the mother. All animals have separation anxiety because fear causes them to run to the mother. That the fear that all young, immature animals experience is separation anxiety until they're mature enough for a normal fight or flight relationship to reality. That is why all human beings fear abandonment, because fear causes the formation of the ego. And everybody fears abandonment because the ego is an amygdala device of positive feedback loops. So a child that gets triggered into a fight or flight state never leaves. So a narcissist is in a chronic fight or flight against a projected reality of fear that they never trust. So they're conspiracy theorists real quick to project because they lack the emotional depth to understand anybody except for themselves. And so all they do is talk to themselves in their head and have a very, very significant reduction in total awareness of their environment. Schizophrenia is the next level of dissociation from narcissistic personality disorder. That's how afflicted they are. And so, when you talk about supply, you're talking about a person that chronically doesn't trust anybody, that needs to perfect people or idolize them to protect themselves from the fear of rejection. That's why the initial love bombing phase is so fun for everybody is because the narcissist has to make you perfect in order to even be able to conceptualize a future, including you in it. So they're safe from you, but you're going to fall from grace, because the other side effect is that narcissists retain a reflective and voluntary emotional state that is reminiscent of babies. And so narcissists essentially are completely undeveloped mentally and emotionally, totally undeveloped. They get stuck neurologically at the age of 1 or earlier. And that's why they need supply, because you see, the emotions of a young baby are only there for the baby to survive. So the caregiver mechanism is a positive reaffirmation mechanism for the mother. So when the baby smiles and giggles, it rewards the mother for taking care of the baby. The baby cries and punishes the mother for being inattentive. And so in order for the baby to get its needs met, it forms a punishment reward mechanism that induces caregiving and then gives the mother a positive experience of the mother in relation to the baby. If a baby has developmental problems, it's common for the baby to have failure to thrive, because mothers can develop postpartum depression in instances where babies can't express happiness. And so narcissists reward you through validation and devalue you to corral you into being a caregiver for them, into meeting their needs, because the emotional awareness of a young baby is only that of its own needs. So the baby cries to get what it wants, and it punishes and it rewards. And so that's exactly what all narcissists do. They validate and devalue, and you are only what they think you are moment to moment. Their mood changes, so do you. Because the duration of emotions for a young child are very short, narcissists constantly need to engage with other people to stabilize their own emotional state. They don't even know who they are without the feedback of other people, because the observation of your relationship to them gives them themselves. And so that's why cutting off supply is something that can be very distressing to them, even confusing. Meaning, if you're in the company of narcissists and you do not show any outward expression of emotion, or you don't respond predictably to devaluation or validation, you see, they need to gain control over you emotionally to stabilize their own emotion. That's the purpose of much of their behavior. Narcissists' outward behavior are always in service of their needs. Your needs and their needs may align, may be parallel for periods of time. But make no mistake, what they do is for their own experience of surviving. It doesn't mean it's wrong or right. It's just the way their mind is organized, as long as they're stuck within this dynamic. And so the world occurs to them a certain way, and they live within that reality that they see. And so supply is just a way to describe the unique validation vehicle of narcissists. While everyone else needs validation for being good enough to avoid abandonment, narcissists have that same need, but they need it in a significant way because they're highly vulnerable people who are deeply affected simply through the observation of the emotions of others. And they can be very, very paranoid and socially vulnerable. And that is why they either exist as grandiose, where their comfort zone is being better than everybody else to protect themselves from your judgment. They need to be better than you, and they need you to validate that. Or they're going to be a victim. Like, explain everything about themselves and their lives eloquently in a way that diffuses and displaces all responsibility. So people that become their diagnosis, people that refuse to let go of resentments, people that can only explain their position in life from the context of victim, are people that are going to get very, very upset when you challenge victim mentality. That a lot of people can be victimized, but the narcissist identifies as a victim. So people that self-identify as abuse victim survivors are going to have a higher likelihood of actually being narcissists themselves. Not in all cases, but just a higher likelihood. So keep an eye out.